Good ball. Start from the beginning.
Okay. All right, I apologize for the late recording. Secretary support, you all have it. Treasurer support, we have money. AOL, we're going to possibly look at the Youth on the Year event on January 6th at the Vestal Library to activate the town's emergency operations center. The fall BARA merch, those are, we're still waiting for those to be delivered, and as soon as we have that, we'll let you know. New York State CUSER party, decent turnout, 576 CUSOs, 93 multipliers, totaling 61,845 points. Laptop purchase, we're looking for some year-end or Black Friday deals, and have our eyes on a couple of them, and we will hopefully will make those purchases in the next week or so. And then finally getting to the brochure, Ellen Wheaton's KC2KLC updated our brochure, and one of our club members indicated that they had access to a color printer, and that as long as we provided the paper, they would run those brochures for us. Notice how I'm not saying that person's name. So anyway, I'll be buying a stack of decent paper, and then we'll have updated brochures that we can then hand out at various events. And let's see here.
Well, speaking of brochures, I put the brochure for the Black Friday Doug's Fish Fry in the BARA fax.
Right. Okay, we'll get to that in the new business.
Oh, that's new business?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And then finally, other year-end party will be on December 20th, the third Wednesday of the month. We finally connected today on the price. The price is basically going to cost the club just short of $27 a person. It's going to be a 6-item buffet with a cash bar. I'm going to propose that we basically just make it $25 a person, that the club will cover the additional $1.87 or whatever. And then the club will be purchasing a dessert cake for for that party. So originally I had hoped to be able to have people pay in advance, but ultimately we're going to need to know. We'll send out a survey and asking people if they're going to attend, and if you say yes, then whether you come or not, you still have to pay, because we have to pay. You can't just say I'm going to show up, and then we tell them, okay, we got this number, we got 45 people coming or 65 people coming, and then if you don't show up, we're still on the hook for that 27, 26, 87, whatever. So just be prepared to pay one way or another, but please pay and come. I believe that's all I have for old business. Any other old business that I missed?
Where will you play?
What?
Where will you?
Oh, it's called it's a place called A Trio, which is on Cooper Road in Endwell.
You know where the galley is?
I don't know roughly because I don't
You don't have a car, yeah. Somebody will have to. Well, whoever's taking you, we'll get you there.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. All right, so then moving on to new business. Our first order of business will be elections. Every November, we do a election for class officers, club officers and directors. At present time, this is the slate of officers. Myself as president will continue. Vice President Ed Rusa, N2ENG, Treasurer Joe Oswald, WA2SGW, Secretary Ed Kromowski, NEGW. The directors Ford Drake AB2HS, Rick Dupree, NN2K, Gary Dewey AB2GD, and new to the board would be Paula Pearl, KD2SLJ. Stepping down would be current director Ed Lanke, N2BHD. So is there anybody here that is interested in running either for a director's or position or for an officer position.
Question about the trustee.
What? The trustee?
Yeah,
Gary Dewey is our trustee.
how do you want to be a trustee?
Well, well, I mean, there's the FCC requires for a club that one of the board members need to be a trustee. So Gary signed up when he was treasurer, but he's continuing to be the trustee of W2OW.
So there are 4 trustees?
No, just one trustee. From the FCC standpoint, there's only one trustee, and it's Gary. It currently is Gary Dewey.
Oh, okay.
So as long as he stays on the board,
The trustee. Trustee is just holds the license.
Oh.
it technically it's in his name, but it has the club. It
Okay.
says it's a club station. So unless there's any other people willing or interested in taking over any one of these or running for any one of these positions, what we then do is we then have the secretary basically put the one vote down to say that this will be the set of officers and directors for next year. Ed, do you have a question there?
No, I don't. Well, go ahead.
Right. A motion? Yep, a motion to accept the slate of officers and directors. Dale, and second? Steve? What?
Can I run to a like assistant to secretary?
There isn't a position, we would have to be within that. Now, you could certainly volunteer,
Yeah.
but it's not, you wouldn't be
Right.
it wouldn't be an official
Okay.
board member position. All right, so then, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, you guys are stuck for the next year. Again.
Thank you to everyone.
All right, next order of business, Doug's Fish Fry actually called us, and in particular, called Ed N2ENG, saying that they actually had an opening for Friday, November 24th, Black Friday, and so we took it. Basically, they were saying that our club has always done a really good job of bringing in, consistently bringing in, people for the Doug's Fish Fry. So Ed was able to secure the Tractor Supply location again, and so we thank you again, Ed, for doing all that. And we will, we're going to be doing that again. So typically, the club has operated from that position, from that location. And at this point, Ed is able to bring a table, but we're looking for somebody, perhaps somebody who's sort of a POTA activator, that'd be willing to sort of bring their gear down and just let us operate, from that using their POTA equipment. So this is the Friday right after Thanksgiving at Tractor Supply. So at this point, I guess what would
10:30, I don't know.
yeah, setup will be 10:30. The Doug's Fish Fry will start. They get there at 10:30 as well. They start selling at 11 o'clock, and it'll continue through 6 o'clock. So we would need your rig to be there for that period of time, or else have a couple of people that would then trade off. Keith? All right.
I've got an antenna set up that I can supply. So,
Okay.
So I have an antenna.
All right. So what we'll do is
Imagine
we'll send we'll send an email out, and ask for people to confirm what they can do and from when. So that also the other thing Ed suggested and did what we did, we purchased a case of water, and because sometimes people will eat, will eat right there, and we can sell them, sell a bottle of water for $1 and make another.
I'm gonna bring the 2 coffee urns.
And as well as coffee too.
So we're
Exactly.
gonna be doing coffee for $1, water for $1. Whatever we don't sell the water, we're not losing any money. We use it for all of our events. So it's, we don't sell the water out. We'll use it here. So we might make some good extra money doing that.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
And-
The last
So the
thing
ice
is,
water.
I'm not sure if money here, but one of the keys to us getting a cut, we have to hit the $3,000 threshold. And you know, the club supports it. I know that we got 70 members, doesn't mean everybody has to go spend $100, but members that can, we can probably get a third of the way to where we need to be with this.
Yes, if the club member.
And I remember when we first started this, Tess told me the key to being successful with Doug's Fish Fry for us as a fundraiser is whatever club puts it on, whatever entity they support. So we've always done pretty good, but that's all I say is, you know, if you can, stop down and get lunch or dinner.
And I will say that it does keep, because the last time we did that, I bought a dinner, and I had another dinner to go. Actually, it was my high school reunion that night. So I just put it in, put it in the refrigerator, and it you know, it was just as tasty then, you know, the next day. So, all right, so that's coming up on November 24th. But also, Ed was able to actually secure 2 more dates for us. We always like to do one in April and one in September. And so we've got, those are Thursdays, third Thursdays of both of those months that were already on their calendar. Normally what you have to do is sort of this, when the sign up opens up, literally the last couple of times I would have my cell phone and my phone here at work, and I'd be just sitting there dialing back and forth until I finally got through. Now, Ed was able to secure those dates without us having to go through that, jump through those ropes. Looking at other things coming up, November sweepstakes is actually, I believe, this weekend. Does that sound right?
Yeah. The phone is.
So the question is there any interest in running sweepstakes where it's only a couple of days away, and we would need to know, I'd say this evening, if anyone plans to run sweepstakes from here. If not, then that's fine too. Yes.
How do you find sweepstakes?
Sweepstakes is just another contest, much like New York State CUSA party. The thing about the New York State CUSA party is that being in New York, people are going to be looking for you. Sweepstakes, it's sort of free for all, and so you won't necessarily be on the receiving end of a pileup, if that's what that's the effect you're going for. But again, my sense is, again, this is where hopefully the activity committee could be a little more ahead of the game, so that we would know by now whether there was any interest, and if so, what we would do to set up for that. So, and then finally, Tom, interesting. Didn't realize you could scratch on the.
Move your mouse on it.
All right.
It's okay.
Try Control Z. Undo.
It's fine.
See, let's try that.
I would say if we don't do sweepstakes this year, we might want to plan ahead next year, because the sunspots are going to be really good, and that would make it much more.
All right, I guess we got to deal with Tom's scribbles. I don't even know how you did that, Tom.
Is it in Zoom or is it in?
It's in
the
Zoom.
Document itself.
No, it's probably in Zoom. So if I move,
It's not the screen?
No, he edited it. Or something.
Good job, Tom.
there you go.
All good. That's the worst thing that happens just for.
Right. Okay, the next thing is coming up is Skywarn Recognition Day. So up at the Binghamton Airport, they have a ham radio station, WX2BGM, and our plan is to activate. It starts at 000 GMT on December 1st, and we'll go to 2359 GMT.
December 3rd.
At the top right of your screen, there's an annotate button, so that might be it, a little over to the left. Other,
Oh, annotate.
I don't know, but that would make sense to
Got
me.
it. All right, I wonder if I can.
Hey, Drew,
Yeah,
while we figure that out, can I do the 50-50? I mean, that way you can focus on that as well.
Yeah. All right, we do have 50-50. Any last minute, takers?
Yep, they're $1 each or 6 for 5.
Actually, while we're here, while we're doing that, I believe we've got at least one or two either new hams or people who've upgraded today. If you are, could you identify yourself? So you said, your name?
Lance Reichert,
Lance, and you passed what test?
I passed the technician.
Excellent, congratulations. And do you have a rig, an HT yet?
No.
All right.
Yeah.
You see one of us afterwards. We can lend you one until you get your own. There's also if you want, I mean, there's also a program called Jumpstart through QRZ, which I believe is still running through the end of this year. For $30, you get a nice HT and some other.
Everything, the software to program it,
Yeah.
the cables, the whole,
Yeah,
and it's dual band HT.
And a QRZ membership,
and a QRZ
I
membership.
believe so,
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
So it's well worth that, worth doing that. Now, there was also at least one other person who upgraded. You went to general today, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Anybody else in the house that
There's another guy here, who was an extra, but I think he's gone.
yeah,
Yeah, we had an extra pass today.
right, and I think
The new general, what's your call sign?
AE2CAU. That's a nice one.
yeah, he got the technician last month, and
Oh, wow.
so we told him that we were gonna give him a pass for December, because we don't do any testing in December, but January, you gotta come back for your extra. All right.
It's probably easier to take it fast.
I have a comment.
All right. Another comment from Ed here?
One thing I was thinking about, if you do have a technician, now is an excellent time in the solar cycle to upgrade to general. The sunspots are growing.
Yeah.
And this is once in 11-year event. You wake up in the morning, turn on 10 meters, and with 100 watts, you'll be able to hear people all over the world and talk to them. So if you've got a technician and you've been on the border, study and come on down, take the test for free. If you fail, we'll give it to you again for free, but now would be a good time to get a general and experience high frequencies.
Yeah. And you only have to pass it once.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sarah, I think Sarah?
Yeah.
You just passed your technician, or what level did you pass to? Technician.
Awesome.
Okay. And I know you already have your HT and gonna. try to get- Already programmed, all right. Yeah, that's another thing also the club offers is, especially when you get an HT, Steve is our programming, guru. So, bring your HT in. I'll let him know that you're bringing it in, and we'll get you programmed up with all the repeaters. All right.
Meet you at McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, buy food. I am little.
Anyway, Yeah.
The program is better if he has food.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll put the PL tones in if he does. Another examination result?
We have 3 new technicians. A person upgraded to general, and another person upgraded to extra today. Wow.
Shout out to all the VEs, because they do a ton of work behind the scenes.
Absolutely. All right. And as I was mentioning, your name again?
My name?
Yes,
Remy.
Remy. All right. And you just got to tech, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we were just mentioning you go to QRZ.com. Do you have a rig yet?
No, nothing yet.
All right, so when we break here, grab one of the people who know this. QRZ.com has this thing called the Jumpstart program. And for $30, you can get a dual band HT plus a programming cord. It's a great way to get started. and it's, for
That's
30
a
bucks.
bargain out there.
Yeah, it
I
is.
just did that, it's only 35.
35 now, okay,
Yeah,
all
it's
right,
a great
but
bargain,
it's still an excellent bargain, so get you started. Anyway, let me finally go back to the Scout Recognition Day. That will be on December, well, it's technically, it's GMT December 2nd, but it starts at 7 p.m. on
Friday night.
On Friday night.
7 p.m. on Saturday night.
right. And we are gonna be sending out, the space is limited, so we can really only have 2 people in that space, one operating and one sort of logging and, and helping out, and you can certainly switch off. But we'll send out a survey to see who's available over what hours, and we'll do our best to parse it out so that everybody gets an opportunity to operate from up there. And I've mentioned, I think I mentioned this in the past, that I know a few years ago I was up there during one of the stints, and we ended up talking to another National Weather Service station in the state of Maine. And when they heard that we were in Binghamton, one of their meteorologists said, hey, this is Lisa or whatever her name was. And this is, I used to be at the Binghamton Airport. She used to work in that at that National Weather Service, and so we called over some of the meteorologists, so they sort of had a nice QSO back and forth with an old colleague there. So it's a lot of fun. Plus, the National Weather Service is a neat place there, and if they're not overly busy, they'll be happy to to show you some of their stuff. So look for that survey to come out, and we'll do our best to give everybody an opportunity to operate out of that. Is there any other new business that I haven't otherwise brought up?
I
Yes.
just have one announcement. We got the stickers, the BARA stickers, stick them on your car, stick them on your Ford truck, whatever. $3.50 each, 3 for $10. We got a few left here. Anybody wants one? Stop back and don't forget your dues.
Right. And the dues is starting at $24 per individual, and
Members in good standing, if you haven't got one of the new WCMW or BARA call books,
the logbooks.
the logbooks, members that are in good standing, that we get one, so it's like you recently joined and you get one, see one of us, because we made first edition call books or logbooks for the first time.
Right.
We want to promote people getting on the air, so see us if you join and you're in good standing.
Very good. All right, Ford, you had a,
One thing I forgot to mention when we did the election, I think we ought to round of applause for Ed Lanke. He served a number of years as a director, and he's going to, says he's going to still attend the board meetings
All
by
right.
Zoom, even though he doesn't have. But he's the guy that keeps the W2OW remote
the
going.
roads, yeah, exactly.
So,
It's been
When it breaks me hard for him.
outstanding resource for us, and again, that's one of the things that I think clubs do for us, is we all sort of can bring our own little bit piece of expertise. So you'll see some of that tonight with the program that Ford will be talking about with antennas, and that's why I think belonging to a club is only serves you because you then learn from other people and what they do, and then we ask you, if you're in a position, like last month Steve talked about wind loading and for antennas and why it's important, as we found out.
Do you want me to show that box that we're going to do, or
How about,
or do you want me to do it with the?
yeah, but maybe during the program.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, question.
There are first Fridays in Binghamton every first of the month.
Mhm.
Okay, and it's for arts. So since we are defined as electronic arts, maybe we could do something for first Friday.
It's possible, and we have to figure out how do we spin that. I mean, I've done that with Kopernik, where we've actually taken some of our our astrophotography, and actually had that on display. I guess think about it. That might be an interesting topic for the activities committee to say, how might we, is there something we could do with that? Yes.
Drew, I recently, this week, started using the JS8 protocol. I could either share that now tonight, my thoughts on it, or if you want to just get going with Ford's presentation and tell me.
I see. Let's put that into next year.
Okay.
And actually, as opposed to just sort of a 5-minute discussion, I'd like to know more about JS8 and so
it's very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not difficult. I figured it out, and it wasn't costly. I didn't have to buy a thing.
Right.
What is it?
A digital protocol.
That-
It's very similar to FT8, but there's no character limit. So you can actually.
Have a QSO.
Yeah, you could it's kind of like sending text messages.
Isn't it also frequently used for like moon bounce or EME?
I don't think so. I read something about that. There was another digital format that was specifically for that though, and it was not JS8.
I wish I could show you this. My brother lives now in Poland, and he has been a ham for almost as long as I have. But he actually sent me this, and he is a big CW fanatic, and he teases me when I say I got 121 contacts. So I'd say like 80 or 90 of them are on FT8, and he sent me this comic of look, a man outside of an FT8 vending machine, and said, had DXCC, you just put your coin in, and so yeah. Hey, it's still a QSO, and to me, that again, one of the nice things about ham radio is that there are people that like CW, like AM, they like sideband, they like RIDI, they like slow scan, they like moon bounce, they do meteor scatter, so there's a lot of room for everybody in this hobby here. So, all right, Ed,
Can we get brochures to hand out at Doug's Fish Fry?
sure. We need to get the person who's going to print them to print them.
Okay.
So, I believe I believe that person is currently unavailable.
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that.
Not
But
to give them away to everybody, but people that are interested.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Get your advertising going too,
Right.
yeah,
online,
well, I sent out the brochures. I hope people put them up at their supermarket or a church or wherever the hang up that we're having.
Social media.
Yeah, social media.
Yeah.
All right. Any other new business to share? Otherwise, what we'll do is we really every morning from Monday through Saturday, there is an 8 o'clock net on the 865 machine, and topics vary all over the place. And Monday there was just a topic about antennas and some people struggling with getting like portable antennas to work well. And normally the net lasts about a half an hour when everybody does their thing, but this particular net went for almost an hour, and then it continued into the next day. And so Ford Drake AB2HS, who sort of has become our de facto antenna guru, has offered to do a talk about some of the traps, if you allow me to use that term, that you fall into when you know, with antennas and, you know, some of the pitfalls, but also, you know, how do you fix that? You know, how do you address that? So what we'll do is, we need to do our 50-50.
Okay, 50-50, I'm gonna ask you to draw. How's that sound? $40. Thank you all very much. This is a really important fundraiser for us. I know we kid around about selling the ticket, but it's a good fundraiser for us. The last 4 digits, 7056. Okay, 056, there you go. 40.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get the ticket
Thank
today.
you very much. Thank you guys very much.
All right, very nice, thank you. All right, so what we're gonna do is we'll take, I've got 7:43. We'll take a 7:44. We'll take a 6-minute break and then come back at 7:50 and talk about antennas.
Yeah, just remember, there's always next month. No, I take it back. I'm not allowed to sell them at the Christmas. Did they frown on me?
Twentieth, I think I'm there.
Monday.
Yeah. And I've actually got the next day to see.
Thank you.
Kopernik doesn't have like an ATM or anything, right? I didn't really figure.
Sorry.
Well, you're good.
So, does anybody want to know about that Jumpstart program? It's on QRZ.com.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. It's right there. What's your call sign?
So, you know, you have to, you basically, once you get your license, you should get an email, right, hopefully by tomorrow even.
Then I gotta pay.
Yeah, then you gotta pay, right, exactly. But, they talk about, here. I'll just- Yeah, for $30, even if it's just a second radio.
The guys at the Rush Club there, you know, my Rush, I don't know. I didn't borrow a radio to try to see where I'm at.
Okay.
Then maybe an outdoor antenna. I'm in some valleys and hills there coming out in between Elmira and Ithaca.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, so you know, it might hit their repeater.
Right.
Or his repeater's just on the other side of the hill.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways of approaching that. I mean, there are some buy some initial antennas. There's also, and I'm the director here for the project, and we do a program called Welcome Aboard the International Space Station, where we actually have our students actually talk to the astronaut using hand radio. But I have a bill, it's a 3-element Yagi for 2 meters out of basically measuring. So it's cut to a particular length. It's a little PVC, so you can do it. You can build your own antenna. And then you just need, to run the coax out there. Now, if there's one particular repeater that you're gonna use, you name it at that, but otherwise you.
We're gonna have to try to trial and error to see what a signal, if you get it.
Yeah, right. And, but.
So it's pretty advantageous to have a rotor on it if you could.
Well, yeah, right, exactly, right. A lot of it would just depend on, you start with a vertical or whatever and just say.
Yeah,
what do
actually, I
got?
was just telling them at the place that I rent from, I looked at the leaves are all gone, the telephone pole, the electrical pole coming in the house has a straight up antenna on it. So I looked at, found a landline, I said, here's yeah, your dad.
Oh.
So there's an antenna there, and I had balled up the cable, I didn't even know the antenna was there. I saw the cable.
Well, it'd be interesting to find out
if it's out 2 meter. So I'll have to, there's a guy around the corner from me, that's got all kinds of antennas. I've got 3 antennas there.
All right. Sounds like you got.
It's almost like 200 foot of wire in there, and then he's got a great big Yagi and a single spire. So he said, well, come and talk to me some Saturday. So
Good. So it sounds, yeah, so that's a good start. But
there's a couple of guys that are Barry. He said, well, let me know when you get done. He says, I might look. He says, I might have a radio.
All right, good.
And I split my time between here and Louisiana.
Oh, okay.
So, but I got hurricanes and everything down there. So
yeah,
this is why I'm kind of interested in getting into this, because that way I can, if I leave for a hurricane, actually I don't go down during hurricane season.
Yeah.
But if one comes around and I go down, I want to go.
Right, and there are people that have their go boxes ready to go. Have a generator or solar panels or whatever.
Where's the logbook? I need, is it in your office or in the shack?
No, in the shack.
Is it open?
It's
open?
It's open. When you go in, off to the left.
Near the other stack.
Yeah.
And in the motorhome, quite a bit, so I'm just not sure how we're gonna hook up an antenna to the motorhome because it's all fiber. So,
Well, actually, there's some more mic here. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that'll be good for the house. And then this will, I guess, sort of push it over. This is for the life.
So that's all fiber. So I'll have to.
Well, again, so this would be a good
Thing to listen
good
to.
thing to listen to and specifically asked about that. I mean, there are other people that do have RVs.
I could always put an antenna, because I tow a car behind it. So I could always put an antenna in the car, run the wire through there, but
Sure.
if there's another way to do it, it would be interesting. I'd like to,
All right.
explore all possibilities. That's what I remember. Barry was saying, he said, well, because you're in different locations, he said, and where you're at, so I don't think a handheld would be your best bet. He said, probably a mobile.
The thing is, like, I got a 50 watt in my car, but also cross country. So I have a little HC. I could be out hiking, whatever. I can talk to my car, and then doing 50 watts out to
Oh, okay. So, yeah,
they could. Yes. Okay, so. There's. Okay. Choose your license, we just.
Get started.
This much of the.
All right, we'll get started with Ford's presentation. So you want to head back in here, or if you're going to have a QSO with somebody, take it to another band.
Oh, my God.
True.
You're keeping up with that.
I know that one. That's why I asked. Okay. Does anybody else that's a current member in good standing want one of the BARA logbooks if you haven't got one? You have to be a member, obviously. Because I'm gonna go and get another one for someone. I just don't want to leave anybody out. You join? You want one? Yeah. Okay, I'll get you. You just perfect. I'll get you one.
You got me one too.
I'll get you. Anybody else?
And they got a lot of good info.
Ford,
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 yeah, I think, was it Jim? Is that you talking?
yes, it is. Can you grab me a logbook and hold on to it for me?
Oh, Jim, I'll hold on to it and give it to Mike Blake when he brings you your hat.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay, there. Wanted to check the audio level, and it looks like we're good.
All right, we're going to start our program now.
Hey, Ford,
Ford,
Yeah.
Hey, Ford, stand up.
I got a question for you. This,
can't you feel the love?
Ford, this is N2PhD. Could you grab me one of those logbooks, please?
Okay, we ready?
We're ready.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna let you guys have. First off, before I get into my spiel, and I'm gonna give Ed Ruza credit on this. Those of you that were around here for the QSO party a few weeks ago, Ed and I were doing quite a bit of chatting back and forth and running around measuring and what have you. And he came up with a good idea. We ran it past Drew, and most of you know that when we set up for stuff, there's cables stretched through the doors, that's leaking cold air and all that. Well, that gets cold in the winter, and I noticed it.
And it's expensive.
And it's expensive too. So he came up with an idea. We gotta get cables from outside to inside, and without letting the outside in. So the idea is going to be as okay, Drew doesn't worry about heat in the observatory. But usually what we do is bring two cables out from the shack, which is out by the scopes, and bring them through the door, and the whole works. Well, what's going to be done in the breezeway before you come in the door is going to be a box right on the wall. You notice it's got 3 coax connectors. One's a spare, so there'll be 3 coaxes. Oh yeah, thanks, Drew. And okay, that cable that's in there, just to show you why the box is big, because we have to. That cable we're going to be using is stiff, and so we need the radius, but it's going to drill three holes in the back for the cable to pass through. We're going to bring the cables over the ceiling from the computer room, the room you fellas just took your tests in, from that room there over into a central room that's the server room, and bring the cables down, and we'll have the quadplexer there, and then we'll fan up from that quadplexer with the coax to the separate rooms. But this box will be on the outside of the building, and it'll be weather sealed as it comes through the wall, and so we won't be letting the cold air in. So that's the upcoming. Then later, we hope to get 2 runs of coax to each of the rooms. So I'll have a wall jack or whatever, you plug your coax right into there, and you're on for operating. So because everybody likes a separate room to operate in. Okay, now we'll get to the meat of tonight's meeting, or the program. And I'm going to keep it basic, but a lot of people forgotten some common theory. Some didn't study it. Some memorized their questions and answers and didn't study about antennas. Remember when they were talking about antennas and you memorized a few things, but you forgot it? Okay, What do we got here?
Dipole.
A dipole, okay.
2
There's
meters.
two poles, right? Yeah, 2 meters. There's a guy who knows his length. Okay, dipole. Basic standard antenna. The reference for, everything starting off with antennas. One side of the coax goes to one element, the other side of the coax goes to the other, or it doesn't have to be coax, it can be twin lead. But either way, you got two parts. The basic one's a half wavelength, or a wave here, or a wave there. You can also mount vertical. You mount vertical, you don't want your cable coming right off and drooping down here. You want to come out for at least a half wavelength. So a half wavelength is about that far away. This length right here, so okay, it's arm's reach for me, from right arm to the other, so your cable needs to come off that far if the antenna is vertically polarized. If it's horizontally polarized, your cable can drop right down. Your typical wire antenna, and what I'm going to go about tonight is what I'm showing it on 2 meters because it's easier to handle the antennas. But the theory is the same for HF, where it's 80, 75 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters, the same thing. The thing that's different is the length. That's the big thing, but the theory is still the same. So what doesn't work here, doesn't work there. And one of the big things is, take the antenna. I got a new antenna for you, folks. Look at that. 19 inches, half the length of that there. Give you a good deal on that antenna. It'll work great. You'll key the repeater 5 miles away. This is some of the stuff that's being pitched out on the in the magazines and some of that stuff. So you hook it up. I got all kinds of problems. Why? Remember, the antenna is composed of 2 parts. One side of the feed line, the other side of the feed line. If you take one part off, what do you do? Where's the rest of the feed line go? Where's the other part of this antenna? If you see something like this, ask yourself, where is the other part of the antenna? What's making up for that missing part of the antenna?
Reflection off the ground.
Reflection off the ground, or most of the time, it's your coax. The shield of your coax. Right here, here's a mag mount. Shield of your coax becomes the rest of the radiating part. This radiates, and the shield of your coax does. And it will radiate clear back to your shack. Guys on HF have played games over the years with end-fed antennas, not end-fed halfways, but end-fed antennas, just a wire out so many feet out, 100 feet, 150 feet, something out, bring it into the shack to a tuner, to the radio, or the older rigs, they come directly to the radio. Well, that was funny. Then lots of times the microphones were metal body. See the radio? Yikes! Get an RF burn. And I'll tell you one thing too, that some people have mentioned about RF. You've got voltage on it, but basically with RF, you do not get a shock from it. You get a burn. What it feels like is, and it depends on what the power is, but you touch it and it'll be warm. Depending on how the power is, depends on how hot it is. But it's just like touching a hot burner. If it's high enough, it'll burn you. It'll actually burn just like a soldering iron or a stove flame or a hot piece of metal or what have you. The interesting thing is, as soon as you let off that, when the RF isn't on there any longer, the wire is perfectly cold. There's no harm to it at all. Your microwave is using RF. The microwave's running, it's cooking your meat. And as soon as that magnetron there shuts off, no more cooking going on. It's just the residual heat. But anyway, the RF coming back into the shack can give you, RF burns and some of that. Yes,
In the case of a mag mount, if you put it on your car, put it in the refrigerator or whatever, doesn't that, whatever the magnet's stuck to, provide the counterpoise?
does to a certain point, which brings me to the next spot. See, good thing I keyed him in on that. See, I paid him good for that line there. Okay,
$5.
yeah, okay. Yeah, put it on my tab. All right. Here we go.
Your first aid kit, like what do you would put for burn?
Yeah, well, if you got burn from it, yeah, it'd be just like getting a burn from that thing. Thing is, don't touch live antennas. Now, you'll see me touching the antennas tonight because I know what the power is. Plus, I also got a pair of gloves here if I need to. But okay, here's your mag mount antenna. And now I don't know where you folks can see it or not. Let me get this out of the way a little bit. Just so happens that Drew had just what I needed. So here's our trusty mag mount. And the guy says, okay, well, yep, we got my new radio, got my antenna, all works, going to it. All right. This meter here, and you'll see it read up in this area here, that's the forward power. And this one here is reading the reflected power. And there's a special formula that SWR is 1 plus the square root of the reflected power divided by the forward power, all divided by 1 minus the square root of the reflected power over the forward power. Big deal.
Would you say his said?
Yeah, so, but when you're using a watt meter where they're doing forward and reverse, they got a nice little chart here that does it, or they make the standard SWR meters that some are read forward and reflected, and others that got the cross needles, and where the needles cross, you read the red scale below it, and that's your SWR. But on this one here, basically, what it's showing, if you see a lot of reflected coming back, that's going to be a high SWR. All right, so I got my neat little mag mount here. This radio is running 25 watts, and it's on an oddball frequency, so I'm not even going to bother identifying because nobody knows where I am. You didn't hear that. Okay.
But it's unrecorded.
Right. Okay. Okay, you'll see right here.
Yeah.
Did I took that out?
Did I do that?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
There you go. Try it.
Remember when the fire alarms went off?
Nope, I guess not.
No.
At least so far. Okay,
Coincidence.
all right.
Oh.
Yes, it did. Okay, all right, hold on, Drew. Let me let you back on the power.
Need a volunteer to hang out of the wire.
Stevie. Yeah, let's all hold hands.
You
are the weakest link.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're down about 10 watts. So, okay, it's not quite as pronounced on this scale, but you still see it, but okay. So, what we're putting out here is, 50 watt scale. So I'm putting out about 4 or 5 watts forward, and I'm reflecting a watt back. Good. Okay, so now the next thing was Victor says, okay, put it over something metal. All right, well, thanks to Drew, we got just the thing. All right, now what I want to show you is you need a ground point. The other part of the antenna, the missing part of the antenna. But not all ground points are created equal.
I need a drone.
All right, okay. There you go. All right. Look at that. I got a ground. I still got high reflected. Why do you suppose that is?
Not big enough.
Right, it's not big enough. Remember I told you, quarter wavelength? All right. I don't know whether this will work or not, but we'll try it. Look at that, the SWR is down.
The lengths don't match either. From
All right,
where your magnet is to the floor. to your-
Sure, okay. It's coming down. But anyway, don't worry about the radios, because I'll show you in a few minutes, the other part with the radios.
Will that
So-
rod, will that
so-
rod go down? Can you lower it?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So if
but,
if you balance the lengths better, you should get the same.
yeah, well, basically what I want to show is some people say, well, just take a mag mount and clamp it to a chair. Or what have you. Well, it will read RF, so it's not doing a good job. What you want is you need more of a ground plane. Remember? You know, basically what a ground plane for a 2-meter antenna, it has a quarter wavelength radius or a half wavelength diameter. So the same way you turn around and put this on the roof of your car. The regular sedan, the roof is just about makes it for a ground plane for a center mounted antenna. With a VHF antenna. When you start talking the other ones, like now, let's go 10 meters. Or a wavelength of 10 meters is about 8 feet. So you need a 16-foot diameter circle to really have a good ground plane for a 10-meter antenna.
I always like driving big cars.
Right. What about 40 meters? 40 meters is about 32 feet for a quarter wavelength.
Tractor trailer.
65 feet or so. And so now you get into like our discussion the other day, Phil's trying to run a 40-meter hamspec on his car and he's having problems. Well, I think part of it is he doesn't have big enough ground plane. Now, just to show you the bigger ground plane, you see the size of this cart? That's closer to a radius we need. Now, let's see what we get. Okay, Drew, yeah. I'm gonna keep Drew busy. Okay. You see there, look at,
Yeah, even with the rubber on the top.
see there how it is?
You take the rubber off. and it's a little bit-
Oh, yeah, yeah, I did have it, that will help.
Even better.
So I got the capability with this radio that, it's, studying on the, microphone to push on and push off.
That's why it's on all the time.
Right, right, no, no, that's just long talk.
Wow.
See there?
Beautiful.
But now, let me show you one other thing. Right, well, I got this one up, then we'll go to the other job. Put this back. Okay, and here we got the high level. Now, watch the, see if the SWR, if that reflected.
It's moving a little bit.
Changes, so.
It's down.
It's not as pronounced, well,
It knows you're there.
yep, see there? Okay, let's try this here. All right, there, that's what I want. See, I got no ground plane at all. See how your reflected is changing? The coax is the other part of the antenna. So you hook up something, you start getting some weird noises in your shack or what have you, if you tell me about it, hey, I hear power supply hum or, I'm getting weird noises. First thing I'll tell you, where's your antenna? Or ask you, where's your antenna? Now wiggle your coax. And as soon as they start wiggling, you hear that noise come and go. All right, you're cheating. You're trying to work without a ground plane. So, okay, so there's the basics there. Now we'll switch. You can relax there for a second, Drew. Now we'll go into the other part. So, all right, first off, any questions so far on what we've covered? Yeah.
Why, did the metal pole underneath not act as the other half of the dipole?
It's not big enough. Well, see, the other thing is that, a magnetic mount, the ground, the shield, does not actually connect to anything. This is actually a capacitor between here with the insulating foil and all that stuff. It's a capacitor. Of course, you got the paint on here. And what have you, and this fellow that's on with us this morning, that he's trying to get a 40-meter ham stick working on the car body. Well, he's using a mag mount. Well, this latest thing is he's put a stud or something on the magnetic mount so he can hook a wire to it, a counterpoise, to make up for the coax doing. Hopefully it'll work for him. We'll see. So, okay, now let's get back to the Ford. Yes.
I just wanna mention something that's very similar to what you're talking about. I knew a guy that drove a 10-wheeler for a town highway department. He got off on a soft ditch and actually rolled the truck on its side. When he tried to call on the radio inside the cab, he couldn't get out. Nobody could hear him because the antenna orientation was totally different than what it started. So that's just something for people to keep in mind, that they're meant to be pointed in a certain direction for a reason.
Right, exactly. Okay, so now we'll go to we're gonna go to a different mount because I can show you as we build on it. So, okay, showed you that the quarter wave, and just to show you that I'm not doing anything weird or no magic. I'm not a magician. So what you see is really what's happening. Okay, we got the high level. Now let's, whoops. That's what happens with no antenna.
Smoke comes out sometimes too.
Yeah, put the smoke back. Smoke on the water.
All right, now we'll try again. Okay, and
You just killed the screen again.
oh,
Is it recording?
okay, I know what I'm gonna do, Drew. I'm gonna.
Not right now. Need some toroids on that line cord.
All right, we're gonna change the thing. Okay, Drew, you know what I mean? I will move this over to here. All right, there. Okay, let's see. Move it back up and let's see what happens. See, there's an example right there. RF in too close to computer stuff. They don't go hand in hand.
And it goes both ways too, because computer stuff,
Right.
there's dozens of oscillators in there, and one of them's gotta be on the frequency you're trying to use.
Yeah, and that's one thing. That's one thing with Skyward Recognition Day. Warning right off the bat, you're gonna be contending with noise up there. It's up there at the Weather Service. They got all kinds of computers. And the room right next to where you're operating has got all kinds of computers in it. So it's definitely a noisy environment. I'm going to go up before.
I just eliminated, there's a thing I use for our live stream
Oh,
that may fix this problem.
all right. Well, I can run it from here.
All right.
Glitched for a second when you did that.
Okay, well, anyway, so, okay, there we go. It's the same setup as before. So basically, you got the antenna with. Well, that's interesting. That coax can come right by the camera. You won't bother it. So, all right, now. You just watch your eyes here, Lou, because I'm gonna put some eye focus in.
Joe, is it still recording?
Yeah.
Oh. With all those stops in the middle?
Oh, yeah, it's only affecting the local projection. The recording is still going on.
Oh, okay.
Shows it in the upper left.
Just to show what it's doing here is.
Attaching radials.
You know, one thing I should have done before I put these on, but we'll do that at the end. So I want to show you with a 5/8 antenna. But what I'm going to show you now is antennas that need a ground plane to work against and those that don't. This is a neat little unit that Morrison makes. They also have an angle bracket, which is what they call their BSA kit. It'll take a halfway of a 5/8 antenna. There's normally used as a mobile, and you can make a ground point antenna out of it. With just this little housing here at an angle bracket. So that's what that is. Okay. Now we'll
Very good.
look at how nice that is.
Yeah.
Yep. It's different.
Yeah, how good? Now,
Now those, the horizontal elements, they are forming the ground plane.
right, yeah. This is what they call a ground plane antenna. And these are the radials, they're not radicals. Radicals are in Washington, radials are here. And and as I'll show you, I'm not gonna bend these, but I'll show you on another one here. The antenna, just the way it is, the impedance. Or what's measured here, and we won't go into how you get the impedance or anything, but basically what it is, it's about 35 ohms. I'm surprised that is as flat as it is on reflected. But if you bring these down at about a 45-degree angle, then your impedance is 50 ohms. If it's down all the way, now, okay, and hold it right like you got it, Drew. What do you see here? Do you see a resemblance? Okay, do you see a resemblance to the vertical dipole versus the other? Quarter wave here, quarter wave there.
They just, for the purposes of.
Okay.
On the live stream.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So here, I'll tell you what. I'll hold it down, Drew. You can move your camera back to where you need it. All right. You see the antenna, and now the radio is down and just about straight. You see the resemblance? The half-wave dipole, quarter wavelength on top, quarter wavelength on bottom. And the impedance then here would be around 70 ohms. The same as what 70 to 75 ohms, which is the same as a typical. Excuse me, I got.
So dipole's typically around 70.
Right, 70 to 75 ohms. And okay, now. Right, well, we've got that. All right, now I'm going to show you.
By the way, tying your shoelace improved it even more.
Yeah. There you go.
It's just.
No, see, okay, now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. Here's your 5/8 what? Makes good mobile antenna and what have you. But it needs a ground plane. And I will show you. Okay.
Because you're not gonna use.
Raise it.
Yeah, if you make it like lower.
Try that.
The other way? Or is it a left-hand screw?
No,
Oh,
no, and a mole mount, and, they're a good mount, but you gotta get them lined up, okay. So there's the 5/8 antenna over a ground point. All right, I got just a little bit of reflected. Okay, about a tenth to 2/10 of a watt, reflected. But that's good. Now, on your car, the best place for your 5/8 is right on the roof of the car. But these will work on the fender and what have you. You look at my cars and you'll see they got a 5/8 on the fender. Why am I not using a half wave on it? Because the half wave doesn't need a ground point. The 5/8 works better. When you get out in the boonies, the 5/8 will outperform the half wave. Yes,
What kind of gain can you expect 5/8 over 1/4?
they claim it's about 2.5 dB over a dipole. Over a quarter wave ground plane, they claim 3 dB. And so, but it is a marked difference. Now, the half wave antenna, all right, the half wave will work over a ground plane, or it doesn't need the ground plane. And now we're talking about the half wave. We got the end-fed half wave, like we were talking about an HF. And so let me get the radios off. Yeah, Josh, question, go ahead.
So right now you've only got 4 radials. Would the SWR drop even more if you added more radials?
It might, but I doubt it. It varies. On HF, the ideal thing for a ground point antenna, a ground mounted antenna, is 120 radials. But you can get by with as few as 2. But the pattern of the antenna changes because you're missing. It's using the radios for some of the ground reflection.
Right, so I kind of pull it one way or the other.
Right. So okay, now here's the 5/8 without a ground point. It's up there. It's up there some, but not bad. But
You ain't pushing many watts.
The bottom part is probably making the difference. It's
Yeah,
almost the same.
yeah, probably
same
is.
distance.
oops.
But basically, a 5/8 antenna, you should use over a ground point. So taking a 5/8 and a mag mount, setting it on the table.
What if you have 2 antennas like this one beside the other?
Alongside of it?
Yeah, 2 vertical.
Okay, well, that can add some gain, but you have to, the feed line connected to the 2 has to be a precise length. So you make them, so they're either what they call broadside, this way or that way, or end fire, or they're going the other way.
What if you put it on a wheel and you just move the wheels with 2 antennas on it?
You still have to, you still have to, basically you have to have the feed lines a certain length. Basically, you want the antennas to both get the signal at the same time. And if there's a delay, well, then that messes up your pattern. That's getting further advanced. We're getting
You
into
put 2
the,
next to each other.
getting into
That
heavier
one,
stuff.
it's it's an omni.
Okay.
You put 2 next to each other, now it turns into an old.
This is the 5/8.
Over.
Kind of like those TV antennas you see with all the little wings going out, is because that way they can focus a pole from one area. It's because of the way it's shaped.
No, I mean, you could have like a truck and those feed lines and you can just move it back and forth. That's what I was thinking.
Find the right
No, just to see how you broadcast it when you move one left and right.
He said it was a function of the length of the feed line, not the separation of the elements.
Yeah, okay, the feed line is still stay the same, you just move it on a tree.
Okay, no, let me clarify. You can. Here we got two antennas. The minimum spacing on them would be quarter wavelength. And if memory serves me right, you got one feed line from here going to the other. There's a quarter wave separation in the feed line, so the signal is off this way. And this antenna would lag on the signal, so it would make it like a loop that way. If they're spaced a half wavelength apart and faced together, the signal would be that way and back of me. And if the separation between them is the same, but you've got a quarter wave phasing between them, then what happens, you got what they call the end fire array. No, the spacing is less than, it's an eighth of a wavelength spacing. It becomes what they call an end fire. So radiation is off this way and that way. So these two antennas, instead of being forward and back of me, it's right to left. And but it's all spacing and what have you, and they call it phasing. Commercial broadcast antennas, they change this, that's how they go directional at night and the whole works, but that's a whole other ballgame. So now to finish up on the antennas, you know, I've given you a bunch of information, basically, a lot of it. I will go right back to this.
Oh, this thing. The blue thing, yeah.
That's device.
Okay.
Just
Device.
the device that he's holding in one. That's
Yeah.
not a, that's
You
not
see
a
the-
radio.
No, I thought maybe it
Just-
had a specific
Just-
name.
No, it's,
Just a makeshift holder.
When the
Vacuum blade.
the blacksmith, has to hold something, that's
Yeah.
only it's little.
Okay, so now for you folks. You know, home, okay, I'm gonna pick on you new guys, ones that just got your license. You're gonna go home with a radio tonight. So you got your technician license. And you're gonna wanna get an antenna. Coming toward the weekend, you're gonna wanna get on 2 meters. Maybe that rubber duck that's on them. And by the way, the rubber duck that's on the Bullfangs isn't worth a whole heck of a lot. So, there's other antennas that are better, but you can make up an antenna that at home that you can use. All right, here's an easy way. Copper wire. Now, the one thing you may not have is the SL239. The copper wire. Now, this is our ground point. I'm going to show you. This we can bend. An antenna like this, when my son was a teenager and he got his license. And I got him a radio and he wanted to get on the air. He says, okay, you're gonna make an antenna. So I showed him the formulas and the whole works. He calculated it out. And he made an antenna just like this, and I made him cut it and the whole works. So it worked. We used the watt meters and the whole works to do it. But that was his first antenna. He knows how to make a ground point antenna.
Can you make one from a wire hanger?
wire is wire.
No,
Okay.
wire's wire. Copper is better, but okay, you see, we've got, higher reflected, and you can leave that right there. All right, now what I'm going to do, they're going to drop these radials down to about a 45-degree angle. See there how nice that is? Now, one of the things that all the hams want to do, they want to build their first antenna. They want to build a J antenna, a J pole. Everybody's got to have a J pole. Junk. You can build them, they work, but you can have all kinds of fun trying to tune them. And I'll tell you one thing, if you don't put it over an insulated mast, support on an insulated mast, you're gonna have all kinds of fun. Because it's an unbalanced antenna to begin with. So it couples RF to the support structure, the coax, the whole thing. So, a J antenna will work. But if you wanna save yourself the grief, this right here is the easiest way. Right there. Now, let me show you also, do you remember I said, if we go down, droop them further. It should come up.
It did, Ford.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, a little bit,
When your hands were on.
I mean,
yeah.
the metal at the bottom is probably tweaking a little bit.
But basic, see, if it wasn't for some of this other stuff, and I saw off the fire alarm in here before, so that's,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons that we're careful, but, basically what it boils down to is, simple, you can make a quarter wave ground point right there. And there is a good basic antenna to get you on the air, and, it works. And, if you go, okay, I'll get you guys in just a minute. I want to train of thought, so, but you look around at fire stations, a lot of that stuff, a lot of the basic antennas they use are quarter wave ground points. And there's the other one, it's what they call the coaxial antenna. And what it looks like is a whip with a pipe, two different sized pipes below it. It's also called a sleeve dipole. You're gonna see less and less of them now because the county went UHF, but if you ever looked at the, a lot of the antennas on any of the fire stations around, you probably saw those things that had a whip that was about, 8 feet long with this sleeve on it, looked about that big in diameter. It came down and then a smaller diameter pipe from that. Well, that's a, coaxial antenna or sleeve dipole, quarter wave on top. That sleeve is a quarter wave. And then, what you have to do is have a ratio, I think it's 5-to-1, ratio of the feed line outside diameter, the inside diameter of that sleeve, 5-to-1. So the RF on the ends of that sleeve doesn't couple to the coax. And but that's a vertically polarized dipole, sleeve dipole or coaxial antenna.
And you notice that Ford's got some nice little wire nuts on here for safety,
Yeah.
all right?
And that antenna there, it looks kind of withered, because it is. That's been over my front porch. I haven't been using it just recently, but you see here, a tie wrap, taped on and what have you. Whoa, and there you go.
That's the end of that.
Tie wraps are not ultraviolet proof, even though they say they are. You're better off putting tape over them. Keep the sunlight off of them, because you see what happens. But you can hang that, you need, this is the high voltage point on the end of this, so you need this insulated. But you can hang this, I can hang it right from the ceiling here, or I hang it from my porch ceiling, and there you go. You got yourself a 2-meter antenna, real cheap.
Let's say your wire was 2 inches longer, okay, your vertical,
Okay,
and you bent it over,
yeah.
okay, 2 inches you bent over. What would, there be any change to the radiation pattern with that?
No, but your reflected would come down, your SWR would come down, if you needed to shorten it. In fact, that's what you can do on a lot of antennas when you're playing with it, instead of taking the diagonal cutters to keep cutting it off, too short. You know, you can bend it over, or in the case of the wire antennas, you're making a dipole for 20 meters.
I wondered if they just
You can,
cancel.
and there's some guys, I've seen some articles that say you can't do it. Well, I'll tell you, you can. You can, your wire comes to your insulator, and then you just wrap around the other wire and keep going back. And I've got some antennas that's got that much length of wire wound back on itself. But this way, if something changes.
And it behaves like it's not even there.
Right, it becomes part of the radiating element. So, okay, now there was 2 other questions we had, yes.
The length of those copper wires or the diameter, does that change?
Yes, okay, And I'm gonna give you a basic, formula, and you were supposed to learn it for your technician test.
Otherwise, get it back.
The length of the half-wave dipole, remember 468 over the frequency
Right.
gives you the length in feet? All right, well, multiply by 12, and you can do that in inches. So each quarter wavelength is half of that. Now that formula gets you into the ballpark. But, you usually want to cut it a little bit longer than that, because then you're gonna have to trim a little bit. Because there's another thing that comes into play. You're not gonna see it much here, but one of the things that comes into play is what they call the length diameter ratio. Now we're getting into the weeds a little bit further with the antennas, but the length diameter ratio. And let's say at VHF and UHF, half wavelength at 2 meters is about 38, 39 inches. Yeah. Okay, so now you take an element that's 1/8 of an inch in diameter. So 39 over divided by 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch, and you come up with some number. And it's a nice little chart that they come out with. It'll give you what percentage you shorten it by, like 5%, 10%, 2%, something like that. It's K factor, they call it. Well, now let's say we turn around and make this radiating element 2 inches in diameter. So now you got 39 over 2, and your ratio is going to be a lot more. So what's going to happen is the element is thicker, you're going to shorten the antenna a little bit. It's a matter of fractions of an inch to an inch or so. And but that 468 works good, especially for HF antennas, because you're talking 1/8 of an inch diameter piece of wire, and a half wavelength on 20 meters is 32 feet or so. So 32 feet, multiply 12 as inches, divide that by 0.125, that is one rail ratio. And so it comes down to, it smooths out to that 468 over F that you were supposed to learn. But that gets you into the ballpark. Okay, any other questions?
About velocity factor.
Okay, velocity factor, that comes in with the coax.
Right.
And that's the other thing. I told you I wasn't going to confuse you, but now I will. I'll simplify it. Coax, RF doesn't travel in coax as fast as it travels in open air. It travels on here. It slows down. And it's the dielectric in there and the characteristic of coax tends to slow it down. So there's a factor they call velocity factor. So there's a multiplier for it. So basically, coax, a quarter wavelength of coax is not the same as what a quarter wavelength is in free space. And and it varies with the coax. If you got solid dielectric coax, typical RG58, RG8 type stuff, it's the polyethylene dielectric in it, that's going to have a velocity factor of 0.66. So you take that 468 divided by your frequency, multiplied by 0.66, and that would give you your what your new number is for the half wavelength of coax. Actually, you shouldn't use 492. That's the free space length multiplied by 0.66. Now, if you turn around and use RG8X or something that's got a foam dielectric, that's got a velocity factor around 88%, 0.88. So now a quarter wavelength or half wavelength of RG8X is going to be different than what it is for RG58. So you have to remember that. Now, normally you don't have to worry about it. Where you can get into gotchas is when you're tuning the antennas, and if this antenna is at 50 ohms, everything's fine. The coax length doesn't make a difference, as long as you don't, you lose so much of your signal in the coax. You don't use 100 feet of coax and, try and figure out what your SWR is, because the coax, smooths it out. But, basically, testative antenna, if you can, what you want is an even multiple of a half wavelength between your antenna and your measuring device. That way, whatever impedance it is, whether it's good or bad at the antenna, shows back up at the meter. Where if it's an oddball or odd wavelength of a quarter wavelength, so a quarter wavelength, 3/4 wavelength, wavelength and a quarter, that there, the length of your coax can end up changing the impedance of the antenna, so it makes the antenna look like it's tuned good when it isn't. Remember the CBers, a lot of the things, well, you gotta cut your coax. Keep cutting your coax till your SWR is low. Remember some of that theory on it? Well, some of that was what you were doing is you're trimming your coax to make up for the bad SWR of the antenna. Once again, we're back to basics. Yes, Rick?
Given the terrain we have in this general area, you know, you're driving along in the valleys and you're up on the hilltops. Is there an advantage to a quarter wave, say on your roof of your car versus a 5/8, one way or the other?
Yes. The books, this is what the books say. And then I'll tell you what I have found out testing around here. The books will tell you, let me get this out of the way. And go back to the other antennas. The books will tell you, okay, quarter wave antenna, your pattern is essentially, just think of it like this. It's a big loop, and it's like a donut all around. And they will tell you that in hilly terrain, you want a quarter wave, because you go up the hill and you're going up the hill and your antenna is actually like this. So, this loop is broader here, so it tends to shoot down there, where they say with like the 5/8, pattern's going to be the same, but it's more of a bullet, like a torpedo, longer. It goes out further. That's what they say. So they say in hilly terrain, like around here, you want a quarter wave. I'll tell you, no, because I've gone to the hilltops around here. I've gone to the valleys. Now, one of the places that I tested it was up between Cayuga Lake and Seneca Lake, up west of Trumansburg, between Trumansburg and Belois, which is right on the borderline of the coverage area we used to have for the 865 repeater when the receiver was on Ingram Hill. And with my car sitting in my in-laws' yard and a farm up on the hills, midway between the two lakes, and all I could see is sky beyond there. They were on the top of the hill, testing the antennas out. Every time the 5/8 would outshine the quarter wave as far as received signal back to the repeater, and likewise. And I also we had the case of fellow that's now a silent P, Brian 80, K2DLB. He and we had for a while a repeater down outside of Hancock, up on a hill at White Birch Airport. And we were coming back, and I had I was using my 2-meter rig, transmitting to the site, and I was listening back on a UHF link frequency. And I got to a point around Harpersville and what have you, that I couldn't get into the repeater. I thought, what is going on? So finally we were in Harpersville. I remember right where it was a Methodist church right in Harpersville, up behind the fire station. Well, anyway, on the fender of my car, I had the UHF antenna on the roof of the car, and the I had a dual band, UHF, VHF antenna on my fender. That was a good Larson dual band antenna. And once again, dual band antennas are compromises. If you want the best, you get one for one band. When you try making it do more than one thing, you compromise. Well, anyway, I had that Larson dual band antenna, which is a half wavelength on 2 meters and a 5/8 over a 5/8 wave on UHF. Well, I was using on the 2 meter side, and I wasn't getting into that repeater. Back east of Deposit and north of Hancock up there on the hill. I got out of the, pulled in the Methodist Church parking lot, got out, unscrewed that half wave, put a 5/8 just like that on. Got in, keyed the radio, heard myself coming back good. So once again, the 5/8 still beats the rest of them. But 5/8 you have to work it over a ground point. Half wave, just like I was doing here, I can set the half wave up right here in the room, and I don't need anything else to make it work. You know, work right here without the ground point. But the 5/8 still got it. But the end result of what I found in other hams around here over the years, we've tested it. And if you know, you get out in the boonies around here, you want an antenna that works on your car, 5/8 will do it every time. And I've tried it in a lot of places because why have I tested all this? Well, I take care of the repeater, so I need to know where the repeater will work and where it won't. And any of you guys that know me very well, you tell me where you are, and I'll tell you whether the repeater will hear you or not. And and I've told guys coming back, I've just about told them where they were on the road, just by their signal. I was hearing in the repeater. And they couldn't believe it. I said, yeah, I said, you're about such and such. You're going down, you went down through the dip on that road. How did you know? I do. And okay, any other questions? Everybody confused. Okay, the new fella, go ahead.
So if you Google 2 meter J pole, this guy's website always comes up. It's just his letters. He builds copper J poles. So that I just spend $75 on junk?
No, but you're gonna have fun getting it to them. But it'll work for you. It'll work good. I got 2 J poles that I use at my place. One I made myself and one another guy made. And I mainly use them for receiving or a low power transmit. But they are a fun one to adjust. And but they do work. One of the things I like to do that I look at antennas, hams tend to be ones we cobble. We'll take something and make it do something. But I like to look at it too. What do the commercial people use? You will not see any two-way radio manufacturer of antennas or on any commercial site, you will not see any J poles that are used for any type of two-way radio or any of that. If you see a fire station with a J pole antenna on it, I can just about guarantee you, probably the hams put that antenna in. Because the J poles don't work, they don't have a pattern and they're not consistent. So for commercial use, the FCC won't approve them because the gain and the other factors of it aren't standard. When they specify for a license that you can have so many gain antenna, so many watts from this hilltop, so you don't bother others. They want guaranteed patterns and what have you, and a J pole won't give it to you. But they're an antenna, they do work.
Basically, there's been a lot more. Like this design, you can just put up, it'll work.
Yeah.
That one, if there's metal too close to it, if it's just a touch too short, touch too long, it gets real. You got to play with it a lot to make sure it's.
But you can have lots of fun. Any other questions? Yeah, Josh.
Is there a limit to the diameter of the elements? Like if I wanted to, could I go get it like a 3-inch pipe and use that as a 2-meter element?
Sure. No limit. No, you're gonna be trimming quite a bit or what have you. But I'll tell you one thing, it'll be nice and broadband, because the one thing you got, the bigger the elements, the broader bandwidth. Now, what I mean by bandwidth, it'll cover a wider frequency span
With the lower SWR.
with a lower SWR. So in other words, you might be able to go across the 2 meter band with that antenna, where with these are tuned at around 146.2, somewhere in that area. But when you get to the other ends of the band, you'll see the SWR go up. And that's the one thing with antennas, they don't work quite across the band. You lose some as you change frequency, because the antenna's a different length for the frequency you're using. So, yes, Victor.
Want to touch on the Aggies?
No, we won't bother with that tonight. That's a whole other animal.
Very easy.
And, yeah.
For 2 meters. Very easy.
Okay, well, that's it. Well, just remember the basics. You know, if you got an antenna and you don't know where the other part of it is, you better find it, because otherwise you're RF well. Oh, yeah, one other thing, just an information thing. You might have seen, in some of your books, this thing they call the, oh gosh, what is it now?
You have that problem too?
Yeah, brain fade, or more than that. Now they advertise it, I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, this is what it is. These are available at Home Depot and Lowe's. And what it is a spring-loaded cam. Here in my right thumb shows the spring-operated cam. And what the beauty of this is, and they've got these, like I said, Home Depot and Lowe's. Lowe's, they're about $8. Home Depot wants 14 for them, for the same thing. And they're over in the section with the ropes and some of that stuff. But here's the beauty of it. Wedge cam, I think they call it, or wedge something or other, clamp. But here's the beauty of it. You want to tighten up guy wires or your tent line or something. You got it, then you want to change the tension on it, you can boost it. So I got a couple of them. I see some of this stuff, I think of antennas. Okay, I've got
Anything longer than it is shorter.
right, yeah. Well, you'll like this music stand. Remember portable music stands that fold up? Okay, you musicians, that's for holding your music. To me, that's the start of an antenna. That's a ground point antenna. Starting off.
Right.
Legs at a 45-degree angle, vertical element. Hey, that's an antenna.
But stand with this.
Oh, yeah, no. So anyway, but that's the, that's one of the neat things. So for, like you want to tighten up tension on a tent stake or something, there you go. So. Now you see what it is. They're advertised in some of the hand magazines and what have you. And oh yeah, just an interesting thing. Another thing. USB I just got. Here's an article on a guy. My introduction to Parks on the Air. And so he tells about the antennas he got, and he had used an off-center fed dipole and an in-fed halfway. Just to show you where he missed some of the basics too, where he didn't look at what all it was. He bought the off-center fed dipole. I discovered that the antenna uses a voltage balance instead of a current balance. Voltage balance force the output terminals to equal voltage. And they can sometimes introduce phase shift between each output terminal and ground. Voltage balance are also notorious for introducing common mode current on outer surface of coax bridge, which can cause the feed line to pick up local electrical noise. As a result, I always add an external 1-to-1 current balance at the feed point whenever I use this antenna. Balance functions as RF took by suppressing any common mode current on the. So here, off-center fed dipole is an unbalanced type of antenna. You're supposed to use a 4-to-1 current balance at the feed point, and that keeps the coax from radiating. But a voltage balance, it couples it to the feed line, your Carolina Wyndham that you guys might have heard of. Actually, what that does is that puts RF on the coax for 20 feet. So you got horizontal radiation, vertical radiation, then you choke it off. And then, so this guy uses a choke. He's got it up too close, but he uses a choke to get the RF off the coax because he was having trouble with it. So there's a case right there, a guy that got you.
All right,
All right.
thanks again.
You're kind of supposed to do that with infant halfwaves too.
Yeah, well, use your counterpoise and that gets around it. But, watch, there's the end-fed half wave and there's the end-fed antennas. They're two different animals. And if you get the end-fed random, you're gonna be, having to weigh 50 feet of coax on the ground, because that's gonna be the other part of the antenna that's missing. So keep that in mind. Read the fine print.
All right.
So,
Turn off the recording here, hold on.